Hey boys, welcome back to some more Rugby League Live 4 or whatever the next Rugby League game is, wish lists and ideas and, you know, the series I'm going through. It's been a couple of episodes already talking about some things. Talked about set plays. I talked about, what was the other one? I can't even remember. I can't even remember, but in this one I want to talk a bit about player movement and sort of the thing that encompass player movement and sort of like the abilities or like the skill moves and that sort of stuff. It's not probably the most important, but I think it's a fairly important factor. So the first thing I'll say is I do really enjoy the movement system in Rugby League Live 3 compared to other Rugby League games, because I'm sure if you played like older Rugby League games, you know for a fact the movement system was fairly bad. Like, you could pretty much just run straight and that was it. Like, turning, it was like a fucking trying to turn a truck, right? Even like your quick plays, you couldn't really change directions well. It was really clumsy. It was just really unresponsive. In Rugby League Live 3, they made it so you can actually control your player really nicely. I do feel like it is like a little bit it's not overpowered per se, but it's a little bit too easy, I guess, because it's the easiest thing to like cheese online, and that's the biggest problem with it. Online play, you just have to get quick plays and then just zigzag around plays. It's a bit too much. But in my opinion, I would much rather be like that than how it used to be. Although my wish for it is, if you look at Madden is a perfect example, and I'm gonna bring Madden up quite a bit in this video in terms of the stuff I talk about. And the movement system in Madden is very, very nice to play. So if you've played Madden, you'll know what I'm talking about. Like, you've got really good control over players, but there's momentum in the running, right? You can change directions, but it feels realistic. Like, you can't just all of a sudden go from like left to right. There's no like slowdown. There's no. You get what I'm assuming people get what I'm saying. There's no slowdown. Like Rugby League Live 3, you can just zigzag around, go left, go right, and keep your pace up. In Madden though, there's momentum. You change directions. You're gonna slow down. You're gonna slow down a bit, and if you played Madden, you can't just run around a play. You can't just take it to, well, you can, if you're quick enough, you can take it around them, but you can't just like zigzag in and out of plays. So I know for a fact the next Rugby League game is not going to have the ability to have the same movement system as Madden. The amount of resources and money that goes into that, and probably the engine they use is out of reach for Rugby League. But if it's more, I would just like some sort of momentum system where you can change directions with quick plays, and you can beat plays on the outside, on the inside, without having to step and stuff. But I'd like it to be a little bit less instantaneous. I would like a little bit momentum, or a little bit of momentum in place, I guess. That's the biggest one. But overall, I wouldn't mind if they just kept the movement system the same. I don't want them to go back to like previous Rugby League games where you just could not change directions at all. It was just impossible. It was just so slow and cumbersome. But the next thing I'll talk about is the sidestep. Now the sidestep, this is something that I think of every year. It never seems to change. Like, I can go back to like probably the main old game that I used to play, Rugby League 2 on the PS2. That's the main old Rugby League game that I really remember. It's sort of the same as that still. Like, you press step left or right, and it's this big animation, and it's always the animation. If the step works, it's always the animation of the defender always diving at the player, and you do this big step to like beat them, and it's very, very unrealistic. Like, it's just not how stepping works in real life, because a lot of times, like, quick agile players, they're gonna beat one defender quickly but get tackled by another guy. In how it is now in Rugby League, if you step one person, you pretty much just get straight through the defensive line, because during that big animation, another player can't come across and tackle you. So you've got like these invincibility frames that just don't make sense. And pretty much everyone always says it. They want it to be like Madden, and I mean, that's what I want it to be like. I just want it to be like a juke, you know, left or right. It doesn't have to be this big animation. Just more similar to Madden. And I remember like Big Ant talking about this, and they said that, if I remember correctly, they said that obviously Madden still has an animation for it, but it's just the fact that the animation is a lot, I don't know how, I can't remember how they put it, but like a lot smaller, a lot more fine-tuned, I guess. It's not like this big animation that takes up, I guess, frames where you can't come across and make the tackle. But yeah, ideally just more like Madden. And I know I said it is the same as like it has been, but they have improved it, and hopefully they can sort of make a bigger leap forward in the way the stepping works, because it has been improved. Like, the animation definitely isn't as big as what it used to be, but it's still like very noticeable. And you know, hopefully next game it can, like I said, take a big step forward in terms of how it looks and how it actually feels to play. Because I should have talked about this at the start, but the sort of the way the movement system works, it's just not very like impactful, I guess. And that'll come in with a few of the other things I talk about. It still feels good, but it just doesn't have that impact, because you know, you're not beating someone with this awesome step that often. A couple of times, because the funny thing is, I've done it in a couple of videos, and I still remember one video, I did like the best fucking step I've ever seen, like with Milford. I might even like link that video if I remember, but Milford, if you do the step, like at a certain point, like well before the line, you can beat the defender before it gets into that animation, and that's what confuses me. Like, if you time it correctly, there's this big animation, you beat the defender, and you know, you beat him. But if you do the step, like if you time it a fair bit before you get to the defensive line, you actually beat the defender without going through the big animation, which it confuses me. I don't know why it's like that, but you know, more like a Madden type system would be nice. Now the next thing is an addition. Well, I'll talk about a couple of additions. The first one is a spin move. Now a spin move, I just feel like has to be there. And watching like the AFL Evolution trailer, you see that there's a couple of, well, there's one, you know, there's a spin move in that, and I feel like that's perfect for Rugby League. Now, you know, in Rugby League, a spin move isn't like a common occurrence. Like, players don't do it all the time, but I feel like it's just the next step. I'm sort of surprised it hasn't been included before. You know, it's not like it can just be how other games do it. You know, you rotate the right analog stick left or right to spin either way. I feel like that's the next logical step for the movement system and the skill system of the game. You know, it just makes sense to me. Now the other one is a backwards fend. So the goose step, the goose step, I just want them to get rid of. The goose step is useless. There is a purpose, like there is meant to be a purpose. The purpose is to combat the low diving tackle, but the way that you can't time it. Like, I've never been able to time it. I've never seen anybody else time it, and I just feel like the goose step is just such a random skill move. I would much rather them just get rid of the goose step, and instead on that, you know, you push back on the analog stick to do the goose step. Instead of the goose step, you do a backwards fend. So it would sort of work the same, because the goose step is to help with like someone chasing behind you, and then they do the diving tackle, and you know, you're meant to goose step and avoid it. But if you just had the backwards fend, if someone was chasing behind you, you could actually like try to fend them off, and it would just be like a normal fend but behind you. I just feel like that's, again, a fairly logical thing to do. I don't think the goose step would be missed by too many people. I think it's a bit weird. So that's pretty much like the skill moves and stuff like that. The other thing I want to talk about is another, you know, blatantly ripping off Madden here, but sort of introducing the skill moves as, you know, either doing them fast or more precise. Now, Madden, the way it works is you can, I think, when you're sprinting and you do like a juke, the juke will be like a lot smaller, like there'll be less timing, there'll be a much smaller timing window, and the step will actually be like a lot less noticeable. But if you time it correctly, you'll just like step past the dude and you'll keep a lot of your momentum going. But whereas if you, I don't know if you have to hold down the button or if you're not sprinting, I can't remember, but I think if you hold down a button and you do the juke, it's a lot more noticeable. Like, it's a much bigger step, you know, you're doing it a lot slower. So, you know, there's probably more chance to actually step the player, but you also lose a lot of your speed and momentum. And I just feel like that would work perfectly for rugby league games as well. Just saying, a system like that, it would work perfectly. I mean, a lot of things that Madden does would work in a rugby league game, especially the movement and you know, the tackling and stuff like that. That's pretty much it. The other thing I'll talk about, this doesn't really focus too much on the movement system, but it sort of coincides, and that is the truck. Well, not the trucking. I'm sort of thinking about Madden here, but the what do they call in rugby league? I think they call it like shoulder charging, or no, they call it a hit up in the games. If you like press the right analog stick in, you'll do like a hit up. Now, the problem is, you don't really notice it. Like, when I do it, I barely notice if I even do it, because half the time they tackle me anyway and it doesn't actually do anything. But also, like, all the play does is just sort of hold the ball closer, and it's sort of like the movement system in general, what I talked about before, where it's not very impactful. Like, rugby league, it's super physical. Like, a tackle is very impactful, running the ball, a lot of collision, a lot of noise. And I think, just briefly I'll touch on this, I think, you know, improving like the sound engine and like the way collisions sound and the way players sound when they're running and stuff, and just a better sound engine in general for like in game, I think would do a lot for the impactfulness of it. Like, the way it is now, the tackling and stuff, there's not too much like sound. Like, it doesn't really sound like that's impressive and stuff in terms of like putting on a big hits and just general tackles. If you watch a game live, like, it's noisy, dude. Like, there's a lot of collisions. It's a heavy sport, so I think improving that would improve the whole game tenfold. But especially taking like a hit up, and I guess I'll bring it back to Madden. They call it trucking in Madden, and sort of, again, it's a fairly big, you notice it when you do a trucking in Madden. The player really, like, he bends into the tackle, you know, chest out, he gets down lower and tries to like run over the top of someone. Like I said, in rugby league games, they sort of just, they do the same running, they just sort of like hold the ball a little closer. That's it. I would just rather it be a bit more like Madden again, where they really like bend down into it and you know, really like go into the tackle. So yeah, that's pretty much everything to do with the movement system and that sort of stuff. I don't think I'm forgetting stuff. I might be. I sort of like try to think about everything before I did this video, but I'll probably forget a few things. But that's pretty much the gist of it. You know, pretty much the same thing. I could have probably summarized this whole video in like a minute and say, you know, just make the movement system pretty much like Madden, and I'll be happy. But there's a few minute things there. Hopefully you guys are enjoying this type of series. I know a few people have given like suggestions and stuff, and it's been a while since I've made a video like this. I've still got a couple more things, a couple more topics to talk about, but I will get onto some of your user comments about what your opinions are and stuff like that in the future. But yeah, hopefully you guys are enjoying. I'm keen to hear some info about the new game coming out. It's probably, if anybody's still listening, it's probably my prediction is we're gonna probably hear something after AFL Evolution comes out, because True Blue are involved with AFL Evolution. They're not gonna really announce anything before that game, because then it's gonna, you know, there's not probably too much crossover between AFL and NRL, but they don't want to like compete with themselves, so they're gonna wait until that game releases and then probably, or hopefully, start talking about the next Rugby League game. So yeah, hopefully you guys are enjoying. Make sure to like if you are, and I'll see you guys next time.